So, bang, we're in, we're recording, and today is a very happy, auspicious, and indeed joyful occasion because I've got somebody who I perceive as being nothing short of a comedy legend. Mr. Tweedy Digweed, or Tweedy the Clown, is in the clearing. Hurrah!
Hey, hello, everybody.
Hello, good morning, and awesome. Why I think of you as being a legend, of course, is because you so remind me of a sort of childhood chime of my joy and love of Stan Laurel. My family, over the last 17 of your 20 years at Gifford Circus, have been coming to enjoy, normally at Minchinhampton Common, the wonderment of coming to see Gifford Circus, of which you are part of the sort of integral beating heart of same. I'm also aware that you've got quite a painful history this year because of the sad demise of Nell as well. Also, at the beginning of lockdown, you did the most glorious, poignant post on the interweb, which is about where does a clown go in lockdown? And I was just so moved by that. And then when getting going with the Good Listening To podcast, you very, very quickly became one of my sort of wish list aspirational people that I'd love to speak to. And just while I'm blowing smoke at you, and I promise you this is all very sincere, I saw another review of you quite recently where it said Tweedy has the heart of a clown, and children noticed that, and I suppose it made me think of, you know, when watching E.T. and the heart chimes when it's time to phone home. I think children's hearts chime in your presence, and indeed you remind me of my own childhood when I chimed with Stan Laurel, which is why it is a great privilege to invite you here today. So welcome to the clearing. How's morale? How are you, Tweedy?
Well, thank you very much for that marvellous introduction. Morale here is good. We finished the feast. Gifford Circus put on a dinner show. It was the only kind of way we could, you know, viably manage to do a show was by doing a dinner show. So it was amazing to actually be able to do a show. I didn't think we'd be able to do anything this year with COVID. So that was great. It's a joy. We finished that a couple of weeks ago. So kind of a bit of downtime now, fixing props and working out new routines ready for the pantomime at the Everyman.
Indeed, and indeed, I came to the. There was a really beautiful comedy sound effect there. I came to the tea time version of the feast, and I was very struck with how, you know, social distancing was probably quite painful, because I know how much you like to get in amongst the crowd, but your virtual high five was something that was still able to be done.
Yeah, it took a bit of getting used to.
Yes.
But, you know, after a few shows, it felt normal. And then, you know, because the whole world's strange now and kind of interaction. But yeah, it took a little bit of getting used to, but it was fine. And it was great fun.
And so I'm going to take you through the wonderful sort of metaphors of storytelling in welcoming you here to the Good Listening To podcast. Yeah. So let's just get on the open road of that. So what is a clearing like for you, Tweedy the Clown?
It's got to be a circus ring, really. Yeah, it is the circus ring, my happy place. Yes,
indeed. And you were associated with Cirque Berserk, I know, before Gifford's, but Gifford seems to be, you know, where your own heart has found a home, it would seem.
Yeah, that's right. So when I first joined Circus, I was with Zippos for a number of years. And when I saw this show, I knew Nell before she started Gifford's. When I first met Nell, she was a groom on another circus, and we kind of hit it off way back then. And when I first saw the show, I just I loved it. I loved the intimacy of it. And when I was with Zippos, I wore the full traditional clown makeup, you know, the red nose and kind of the white mouth and things like that. But I was always more drawn to a natural style. You mentioned Stan Laurel earlier, who's a great hero of mine. And I always wanted to do more of that sort of vaudeville music hall style clowning. And when I spoke to Nell about coming here and joining her show, we were completely on the same wavelength. One of the first things she said was, I don't want the big clown makeup. And I was like, that's great, because neither do I.
So, and did you have your sort of iconic red mop at that point already.
I did, yes. So I initially, when I dyed my hair red, actually, bizarrely, I first dyed my hair red when I was in Gloucester in 1995, Christmas. I played the Leisure Centre in Gloucester with
That's
Circus.
not a part you playing the Leisure Centre, is it?
No, that wasn't the role.
I'm playing the Leisure Centre.
Yeah, we turned, I don't know, a hall in the leisure centre into a circus essentially. And I first dyed my hair red. I think it was a Prince of Wales pub, because the caravan was parked behind the Prince of Wales pub, and I dyed my hair red there. So originally it was all long on top, and I had little bunches that I used to wear.
Yeah.
And then one show I did this routine with a giant birthday cake, and I'd come in, and of course I'd fall in it, and I'd do this kind of perseverance thing where I'd lie in the cake, and it would get to that point where it gets a laugh, and then the laugh dies down, and then people are like, oh, what's going on? And then you have to hold it, long enough that then the laughs start coming up again. But unfortunately, one of the candles hadn't blown out. It set fire to my hair. The hair caught fire in the sack. And when I came off stage, the only bit that was left was the tuft at the front. And I was like, actually, that looks better. And that's how the red tuft came about. And that was back in 1996, I think it was. So that's how long I've had the
By the way, that reminds me so beautifully of a quote, which is, what's meant for you won't pass you by. So the fact your head set on fire that day, the fact you're in Gloucestershire, the fact you're behind the pub you mentioned, it was obviously meant to be in you finding your clown, that was just, you finding your moment.
Yeah. So there we are. And that's how the tufts came about.
And by the way, even our great love of Laurel and Hardy, did you gather it took them 12 years having known each other to find each other? And in fact, it was a burning incident. There was a burning incident where I think either Stan Laurel or one of the two were a stand-in for another actor who'd burnt himself taking a roast out of an oven. And that was why they were suddenly thrown together. So there's a sort of fire in adversity. And then, talking of fire, I've seen you fired out of a cannon many times to great hilarity as well. Oh, you sound like a Dalek suddenly. Sorry.
Sorry.
This is really good. Oh, you really are sounding. You've just gone all Dalek-y, which it is good, but let's keep going. Say something else.
Well, it's fine my end.
You're back. That was just a wonderful Doctor Who sort of quirky moment there. Well done.
Yeah, I can't remember where we were now.
I was wibbling on about fire, cannons, Laurel and Hardy, ovens. You dyeing your hair red.
Yeah, the cannon at Gifford Circus, that was kind of a very memorable moment. And the director suggested a couple of times about kind of doing it again. But the thing was, there really was no kind of safety plan with it. If I missed that rope, for those who didn't see it, I got fired at a cannon and then I'd catch this rope.
Yes.
There was no safety. And if I missed the rope, I genuinely would have landed in the audience. So I'm not sure how we even got away with it.
I love that. Comedy always pushing the boundaries. And indeed, I can remember the exact moment where I thought you caught the rope. And of course you caught the rope, because that's comic timing personified, that you'd catch the rope. And in all the times you did it then, I'm assuming you've obviously you never missed it.
No, there was one close call where the cannon was slightly not in line. So I came out and I had to go, and reach, to the side and catch it. So that was a bit scary.
And during the tea party of the feast, there was a bit of a sort of woo after the show had finished, with the extraordinarily fast and frenetic roller skating act, where we could tell they were having a go at something to do with the technicality of the ramp that day. So I know it's always on the edge.
Yeah, and that's the joy of kind of circus and live entertainment.
Yeah.
You don't really have that thrill and that feeling of, it could go wrong when you're just watching.
But it's that lovely thing of always just being on the edge of, comfort, risk, panic, just something being slightly on the edge of it could go wrong at any moment.
Yes, and that's how the clown works so well in circus, because you have that feelings of kind of anxiety and things, and then the clown comes out and breaks that with comedy. Because I think if you didn't have the clown there, you might end up with a nervous wreck by the end of the show.
But you're a very particular type of clown, because clowns per se can sometimes have a bit of a bad press where it's just about being a bit of a twonk, whereas just being a twonk for being a twonk's sake. Whereas what I notice you do so beautifully is you do absolutely make everybody resonate, and you chime with all the parents. You've got lots of, my whole extended family of me and my immediate family, and then there's a squad of 9 of us that have been coming for 17 years, and I've sat in many packed houses experiencing the great joy that you bring. And the most extraordinary thing I love, and I need to ask you the question, is how's Keith today, or Keef as you like to call him?
He's fine. He's not in the workshop. I don't even know where he is.
He's gone out for a walk. Just a sheer. By the way, I really apologise if I interrupt you occasionally, but do you know what I love about Keith the Iron? It was just so funny to see you walking on stage with an iron and getting it to sit. And anyone who doesn't have this frame of reference, it's just you have a pet iron called Keith. And it reminded me of childhood, because there was a real thing where people wanted pet rocks. So I could really relate to this idea of an inanimate object, which then becomes really iconic and precious to you. And I have seen, in researching before I spoke to you today, a montage of children just playing with irons, obviously when they're off, health and safety, la la la. But the idea of having this pet iron called Keith is such a lovely thing.
Yeah, and it was purely, there was an iron in the bucket one day. It was 2008, and I just thought, I'll take this out and play with it, because it seemed a shame that it was being thrown in the bin. So it's actually a rescue iron.
That makes him even more. And is he's the one and only and the original Keith then, is he?
Well, he's a bit like Doctor Who.
Okay.
Yeah, he regenerates every now and again. He doesn't travel through time and space, as far as I know. But yeah, yes. he regenerates. That's what happens.
I mean, someday, if you'll allow me, I'd like to adjust into you, Keith. Maybe there's a whole story of time travel, ironing out the creases of time, all that shebang. So we're in the clearing, which, no surprise, and I sort of expected but couldn't assume that your clearing for you would be the circus arena, with all of its lovely straw lighting, its warmth, and its ability to play, innovate, explore, clown around, and all the stuff that you do.
Yes, here we are.
And here we are in the clearing. So if I may join you in your clearing now, what we're going to do is, if you'll allow me, I'm going to bring a tree into your clearing, Tweedy, and we're going to shake your tree to see which storytelling apples fall out in true Good Listening To podcast style. So your tree and the apples take the form of this storytelling exercise that you're kind enough to think about. You're taking me into a circus arena, aren't you? I love this. Is that is that a rehearsal ring?
Yeah, this is a practice room. Yes.
Thank you so much for carrying the laptop to that space. That's even more precious. And by the way, it's even more rich that I can keep talking to you in that space now. Even though you've frozen at this point. Come in, Tweedy. Have we lost you? I have to pause and fill for time until Tweedy can find a signal again. Tweedy, you have frozen.
Oh no, you're back. It made a funny noise. Okay, no. I've ditched that idea because I don't think the internet's going to be strong enough in there.
We're improvising beautifully. I love that. Okay, so within the circus ring, metaphorically and literally, that you've just shown me, there is a tree. We're back on the rails now, and we've flown out the cannon and we've grabbed the rope. We're back in the room. So it's a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 storytelling exercise where you've had 5 minutes or as long as you needed to think about 4 things that have shaped you, 3 things that inspire you, 2 things that never fail to grab your attention, and then 1 quirky or unusual fact about you, Tweedy, that we couldn't possibly know until you tell us. So they're your apples to shake. Where would you like to start going on the open road of that exercise?
Okay, let's go with the 4.
Okay.
Yes.
So what's inspired you?
Oh yes,
Shaped you. Sorry, it's wrong. It's shaped you. What are the 4 things that have shaped you?
Shaped you. So well, childhood would be number one. Kind of obviously because that shapes everyone. But I was really tiny as a child. So much so that they kind of put me in hospital when I was 16 or 15 to kind of try and find out why is he so small. It turned out that I was just a late developer. I just didn't want to grow up. But kind of being small as a kid, it naturally kind of made me a bit funny and kind of gave me that, people kind of be more sort of sympathetic or have empathy towards me because I was small. And I kind of think that had a big sort of impact of kind of shaping becoming a clown and who I am. And also because as a late developer, I didn't actually hit puberty till I was about 17 or something like that. So I think that's helped keep the sort of child within me for till now. It's still with me now. So that's one. Another one would be Haddo House Hall, which is where I went to youth theatre there. So
Say the name of that again. Sorry, you broke up slightly. Say the name of that again.
Haddo House Hall.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Aberdeen, up in Scotland, and I went to youth theatre there. And then subsequently got my first job in pantomime at Haddo House Hall. So when I left school, at that point, I knew I wanted to be a clown, but I had no idea how to go about it because, there was no internet. So it was very difficult. And then when I got off of pantomime, it was just like, yeah, I can make a living out of this, So that was, that helped shape me. So that's 2.
Doing very well.
Very well. 3. Three's got to just kind of be Circus. Both Zippos, which I mentioned earlier, because that's kind of where I got my first job. So when I knew I wanted to be a clown, and like I say, I didn't know how to go about doing it. And after doing pantomime, I got a job at Butlins, being a red coat, and that was to save up to go to full time in Bristol, which was Circus Media before it became Circus Media. So I was saving up to go there to do a clown course, but then it went bust that year, so I never actually went. But
so what year would that have been?
That was 1992.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I was at Butlins, kind of doing clowning, trying clowning stuff out every week. That was the joy of it, was I could just go on the Red Coat Cabaret and do whatever I liked every week. And I did terrible things, but it was just experiment. You get laughs, and sometimes you just go, "What is this guy doing?" And during that time, kind of as personal research, I wrote a questionnaire to lots of clowns just to kind of try and learn how to become a clown. And I only got 2 replies. One was from a clown, Cirque du Soleil, who I didn't even know who Cirque du Soleil was at the time. It's like, wow, one from Canada, that's nice. And the other one was from Martin Zippo Burton, who's the owner of Zippo Circus, and he was clowning in the show at the time. And he said the best way to learn is from other clowns and by doing it. And he offered me a job. He said, why don't you come on the show and as an advanced clown, which meant I'd do school shows, to promote the circus, and I'd be standing on the street handing out leaflets as a clown and things like that. So yeah, that's how it got started. I went there.
And at that point, were you going down the route of trying to define your own clown faith? Because I know there's a big sort of culture of coming up with your own iconic makeup. I'm so happy you don't have makeup now and the iconic tuft instead. But your journey to that, presumably with Zippos, you were having to go down that avenue of defining your clown. or finding it
Yeah,
now?
because at the time, Zippos, it was very much a traditional circus. And like you say, you have to find your own makeup. And the thing with clown makeup is it's to enhance your facial expression. It dates back when circuses were huge. And the people were really far away, and the lighting wasn't great, and of course you didn't have the radio mic, so people sat way at the back and still read your emotions.
So it's a form of
So
amplification of its day.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah,
and that's why if you put the makeup on and it doesn't follow the natural lines of your face, that's when it
yeah,
becomes gross and scary.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I developed a clown makeup, and I based it on a clown grok, who's a big hero. Um,
And say
he
that again.
was
Grog, did you say?
Rock, CK,
Aha, rock.
Rock.
Yeah.
Um, he was like the highest paid musical artist at one time, and it's a fascinating story. And there's video footage of his whole act on YouTube. It's not that funny now. It's kind of dated a bit, but you can still see kind of the brilliance of him as a clown. So I based my makeup on his, and you can see my egg, because clowns, once you register your makeup, you get painted on an egg,
Aha.
and that's sort of, I don't know if it would work in court, but that kind of just says that's my face. You can't copy it. They were on display at Wookie Hole, but I don't know if they still are or not.
So your egg is still out there, is it? The egg of Tweedy.
Yes, yeah, it was at Wookie Hole. Actually, it was this time last year. It was in an art gallery in Bristol, but I don't think it's there anymore.
And I'm based in Bristol, by the way. So your references to full time, Circa Media are all really resonating because it's my hometown. So absolutely.
But it wasn't Bristol last year. There's actually a book, The Clown Egg Register, and it's
Okay.
just a book that's got photos of all these.
And presumably that's an old egg because that was the Zippo era, whereas now if you had a new egg, it would be what you are now.
Yes, which there's not really that much makeup. I have meant to get one done, but I haven't got that.
I know you've got a Tweedy doll you can buy, so you've certainly got iconography that's out there.
There's the Tweedy toy, and there's actually one in the V&A. They asked if they could have one.
How wonderful, and quite right too.
So yeah, that's kind of how it started. I went to Zippos and I learned there. But what happened was, in my first week, Zippo, who I'd say at the time was the main clown, got stuck in traffic. So I had to fill in on my first week, and he caught the end of the second performance. So I kind of became his understudy for that year, as well as doing the school shows.
Good grief, another wonderful coincidence. If he hadn't got caught in traffic, you wouldn't have got elevated to that sort of chance. And it's about windows of opportunity in life opening up. And even the opportunity of your head being on fire is still an opportunity. And a wonderful thing about in adversity, what creativity can we glean from it?
Yeah. So that's how it started, and it was great training, although it wasn't kind of my intention to do the traditional kind of circus clown thing. I loved it, and I did learn a hell of a lot. So the next year we became a trio, and in kind of European circus, it was quite normal to have the white face clown, with the sort of pointy hat and
Yes.
the really elegant, sparkly costumes. Funnily enough, there's not that many left now, but I saw one last night. It was a friend of mine with Circus Wonderland. They were over at Reading.
Aha.
And it's just really nice to see that tradition still going.
And by the way, that's what is so precious about Gifford's, and the fact that the legacy beyond Nell will live on. And I know that it's Lily Rice that's running it now, but it is such a beautiful thing of keeping a tradition of such wonderment and such magic and such kindness going, actually. Because I know circus can have a bad rap globally because they always assume, I say they, but people who don't understand often can talk about cruelty to animals and all that type of stuff. But this is such a magical thing, the Gifford Circus space.
Yes. So yeah, it's great, and that's how that started. And then, as I said earlier, I then came to Gifford and kind of made this my home. So that's three things that had shaped me. I'm missing. I need one more thing that shaped me.
By the way, if I may, just one thing about the first thing that inspired you, the fact you said you were a sort of a late developer. I
Yeah,
read a review about you, which I thought that's such a beautiful review. It described you as being sort of the Mark Rylance of clowning. And you're in
okay.
good company because apparently his own development, in his Desert Island Disc, I remember being really very profoundly moved by the story that as a child he was mute for many, many years. But that informed his acute ability to listen. And my favourite actors on this planet, or clowns, are people who are able to really, really listen, because it's about
Yeah,
kindness and resonance. And so the fact that you were called the Mark Rylance of comedy, I thought was just such a beautiful. I think that was a Telegraph review, dear. If you didn't remember that.
oh, yes, the Telegraph, darling. Oh, I do that. Yeah, that was quite bizarre because that was a review for my online show, which
Ah,
I was
yes, that was during
completely
the summer,
shocked.
was it?
Yes, I'm completely shocked that the Telegraph would, review an online kids show. But there we go. That it was a very nice surprise.
And
Um,
just what
so
was that? There was a brilliant show, wasn't it, during the summer, which is how you responded to Where Does the Clown Go in Lockdown? And it was with the Barn Theatre, wasn't it, that you did it?
that's right. Yeah, it was kind of literally the day after I did that post. They contacted me and said, we're thinking of turning our theatre into a TV studio. Is there anything you'd like to do? So of course, I've always wanted to do a kids show, and um, I've had so many meetings kind of with the BBC and production companies, and the problem is most of the things I do, you're not allowed to do on kids' TV because of the health and safety,
Play with irons
just
and things.
the rules and regulations. Um, so the show I made, Tweedy's Lost and Found, it would never actually be allowed to go on TV. So I had a great time, and I did deliberately kind of do tricks and stunts that I knew they would never let me do. I thought, well, I may as well do them here and
Again,
now because
and again, what a clown of your time you are, because it's all about, how the spin on the Darwinian quote. It's not the survival of the fittest; it's actually the most adaptive and responsive. So you've had a summer of being really adaptive to the new world order, which I think is an amazing feat.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I just embraced what was there. I did quite a few Zoom shows as well, and it's interesting just playing with Zoom and playing with the different perspectives that you have. You can do a gag over here, and then you can have props out of sight that you can
Yeah, yeah,
suddenly bring, and so there's kind of all this kind of disappearances and appearances that you can have. So
yeah.
it was fascinating to kind of have this new medium to play with, although
And
it
just
didn't
at the
actually.
leap off point where you were about to evolve and explore, I say again, I was so struck with the poignancy of that very melancholic posting. Not that I think of you as being like that, but I think Nell had not been long gone. The pandemic had started, and then there was this sort of posting of where does a clown go during lockdown, because you were supposed to be doing the hoolie. I know
Yeah,
everyone was in place, and yet suddenly the wilderness is there. which
I mean
which also by which also reminds me of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are Dead, the idea of a troop of players in the wilderness, and then suddenly one day they appreciate there's no audience. So at what point do you stop wibbling onto the wilderness and you just stop? But thank you for not
yeah.
stopping. You're keeping going. So, did you think of the fourth thing that has shaped you?
What was it? The other thing about that post as well, I offered them like birthday video messages,
Yeah,
and I couldn't keep up with them initially because families, kids couldn't have birthday parties, they couldn't meet with their friends, so there was all these kind of upset kids that they couldn't have parties. So I got completely inundated with birthday messages, which was amazing because people were extremely generous with donations. I mean, I said you don't have to donate because I didn't want people that didn't have money not to have a message. I just do all the messages, and if they wanted to donate they could. And people, yeah, some people were very generous, and so I was so busy during lockdown. It was bonkers, but it was great.
But also, you're part of the fact that your door, you know, that idea of when one door closes, another opens. The fact you couldn't go to Circa Media because it shut down might have been like a slam door to many, but you just then went on the open road, and that's when you got the ask with Zippo to go and start a bit of a training there, if you like.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I think you can, you can learn a lot at circus schools and workshops and things like that. But at the end of the day, I do think you just need to get in front of an audience and see what works. People say all the time, they'll say, "Oh, where did you train? Did you go to Gollier? Did you go to Lecoq?" And it's kind of like, well, no, I learned the same way that my heroes did, like Laurel and Hardy. And,
Yeah. You just got on your comedy clown bike and just started riding that bike.
and just tried and see what worked. And and people do kind of benefit from schools and things like that. But I just think actually it probably wasn't the right thing for me anyway. So
Yes.
maybe just sell the door shut.
And it's interesting also in life, some of our favourite, success stories are when people have been slightly maverick. They've gone slightly against the normal route of stuff. So the fact you thought, oh, I'll go over here instead is just a way of finding your own path rather than trying to emulate somebody else's.
Yeah. I've thought on the fourth one.
I'm glad we waited.
I think the Edinburgh Fringe. Because we'd go to the Fringe from school, because I was in Aberdeen. We'd have a weekend where we'd go and see lots of shows, and the teachers would decide what shows we went to see. And this year, when I was kind of thinking clown is what I am, we saw Circus Chaos, which was the French kind of...
I saw that. The sawing cars in half with chainsaws. I think I was probably there the same year.
It's a bit like sort of Mad Max of circus.
Yes. I saw it.
And we saw Circus Oz, and we saw Avner the Eccentric. And Avner was just like, that's what I want to do. It was just completely... It's a one-man show. He got nominated for the Perrier that year as well. And just incredibly simple stuff, but just so well executed. So yeah, seeing all this kind of amazing stuff at the Edinburgh Fringe.
By the way, I really loved what you just said about that's what I am. I was going to ask you, if you're at a dinner party, as we often are sometimes, and someone has no frame of reference for who they've suddenly sat next to, so it could be at a wedding or whatever, and they turn to you and say, what do you do? If someone has no frame of reference, how do you answer that, Tweedy?
I do say clown, but obviously it's always a battle with clown, because I always say to clowns, we need to reclaim it, because it's just got so much negative kind of connotations to it now. First of all, it was just clowns aren't funny, and then the whole kind of horror clown thing.
Yes. And it's called choleraphobia, isn't it? The fear of clowns.
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
But I love the word clown, and I don't think there's a better word to describe, what it is, but not a lot of people know that the true meaning of the word.
And what I so love about that, linked to the word vaudevillian, it's this idea of, Stan Laurel for me, and I promise you, resonating with you, when I was 7 years old and living in Uganda, Stan Laurel came onto a black and white TV set, and he was the first clown vaudevillian comedian to just completely make me stop in my tracks and just be gobsmacked with the chime of kindness, humility, warmth, innocence. And it was just beautiful. And it's this idea of, I mentioned this heart chime that you feel when you watch somebody who's totally in their zone.
Yes, so that to me is what clown is, and that's what I want kind of everyone to know, that's what clown is, because it's a beautiful word as well.
It is.
And it should be used for that, and not, at the moment it's Boris Johnson, Bozo the Clown, and it's, to me, it's like, no, not a clown. Stop it. He doesn't deserve
Stop
to be
it.
called a clown. You know?
Well,
So,
if I may, that makes the clown thing dirty. That's another of your catchphrases, I know. It's dirty. You don't want it to be dirty.
and I would like to kind of reclaim the word clown, because otherwise, you go, oh, I'm a physical comedian, and it sounds,
Yes.
it doesn't describe what I am. I don't think. People go, oh, what, you're a comedian, so, and that is just kind of confusing. But I do have to then explain, when they say I'm a clown, and then they go, oh, you do kids' parties. No, not really. I mean, if you say circus clown, people kind of get it a bit more.
But if it's helpful, I just love the fact, just state the truth. I am a clown. And then let the silence sit there, because actually you keep coming back to the clearing, to the circus arena of you are a clown. And that's a total compliment.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I felt when I kind of realized that that's what I wanted to do. It was a moment of kind of realizing that's who I am, rather than that's the job, or that's the career that I want to take. It just made sense of kind of my personality and kind of all the kind of natural things. I mean, not everyone, it's like, there's those that clown and there's those that are clowns, and I feel that, it is just kind of who I am. It is part of me.
Yeah.
And and it's not to say that one's better than the other.
Yes.
People clown that are very serious in real life, like Rowan Atkinson.
Yes.
He's very serious in real life, but he's a fantastic clown.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just a natural thing.
And one of the questions I want to ask you later is who your absolute comic heroes are. I know we've had Stan Laurel, we've got Zippo, you've mentioned Rowan Atkinson there. I know Lee Evans came to see you at one point, and he is from Bristol originally, I think, as well. And back in the day, I remember seeing him and Bill Bailey on the same bill. So I'd be intrigued to know, who else. And I was at college with Bill Bailey way back when, so all these wonderful connections.
Yeah.
So thank you for remembering the fourth thing. So we've shaken your tree to get what has shaped you. And now, if I may, let's get into 3 things that inspire you.
3 things that inspire me. Any kind of physical comedy. Anything that's kind of visually funny. It's just...
Which is slapstick. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, which I love to watch and kind of inspires me. Music inspires me. And what would be the third thing that inspires me? I get very inspired when I go running.
Okay.
I think because it kind of clears your head, and driving a bit sometimes as well, but that can be dangerous because you
the way you drive.
you forget where you were actually going. And well, I do that when I'm running, but it's not as dangerous. I'll suddenly go, oh, wait a minute, I'm like 20 miles away in the middle of nowhere.
So that's your big fitness kick, is going running, is it?
Yeah.
Your happiness
because my knees have been playing up since the feast and doing the slack rope. But yeah, I love to go running, and that kind of clears my head, and I usually get lots of inspiration whilst out running.
Lovely. By the way, there was a ventriloquy act, bit of beautiful comedy business. I've been really struck over the 17 years of seeing you how much new comedy business you come up with. I know you may think it's all water from the same well, but I thought the ventriloquist segment of the feast was one of the funniest things I've seen in living memory. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's a lot of fun. I mean, new. It's kind of it's old. It's not to say that it's kind of looking. I look back to look forward a lot of the time. I learned a lot from a comic acrobat called Johnny Hutch.
Oh yes.
You know Johnny.
The name is familiar, and I think I've seen some clips of Johnny Hutch. Yes, an amazing physical comedian.
He ended up. He became Benny Hill's new little.
That's who he was. Yes. The slap.
So the original one, Jackie, I can't remember his last name. He passed away, and then so for the last couple of series, they got Johnny in, and because Johnny was also an acrobat and could do all the slapstick, it then kind of became more physical. But he he used to always say, the most original person is the person with the longest memory.
That is a great quote, Tweedy. Thank you. Just say that again. That's beautiful.
The most original person is the person with the longest memory. So
No such thing as an original idea. I love that.
yeah, and because he'd always go, you know, as a kid, I was brought up in the music halls, and I'd watch every act from the wings, and he'd always go, that was my schooling. That was my schooling. He'd always say that, and he'd say, you know, and he'd tell us about kind of old acts and things like that, and it's like, if nobody remembers that act, and then they see it, they're like, wow. And even if it, you know, it's not stealing an act, because you don't really know what they did. You just kind of get what he said, and it's great to be, like you say, is keeping tradition alive still. You know, bringing back kind of old ideas and things like that. So yeah, so you can add Johnny Hutch to the heroes list as well.
Very good. And by the way, I'm loving the direction this is generally going. We're still shaking the tree. Anything else that inspires you?
There must be, but it's just like, love it. It might suddenly come back to me in due course.
No, take it back if you need to. So now we're on to two things that never fail to grab your attention. And there's a slight pressure because you've already mentioned stuff like slapsticks. I'm having to get you to wring out your brain a bit more now.
Two things that grabbed my attention. Apart from slapsticks, I've already said that. And a good clown. I probably can't say that either. Grabbed my attention.
And they don't have to be distinctly different. It could be that these are all variations on a beautiful theme here. So there's no great test. You won't have failed if you don't give us two new things.
Any kind of good theatre always grabs my attention. Maybe that's not grabbing your attention because you have to sit there for an hour. It's not really
that's about if it keeps your attention, which is what defines good theatre, isn't it? If it can keep your attention, then they're onto something.
Yeah, and any kind of good circus act as well will grab my attention.
And there's been a complete, wonderful, eclectic, wonderful mix of extraordinary acts within Gifford's. Actually, again, I'm intrigued where, you know, who next. You know, it's always a wonderful thing, the surprise element. By the way, I think you and Nancy Trotter as a sort of double act, whether you are definitely one or I know you enjoy working together, but that's always a joy when you're both in the show together.
Yeah. Nancy will be back next year for the Hoolies. She should have been, you know, on the Hoolie this year. So yeah, we are kind of trying to think up some new bits to do together for this year. I'm not sure if we'll top the bungee number that I did the last time we worked, where I ended up removing a dress via
bungee cord.
Via a bungee cord.
Of course, we've all done it. We haven't really. I saw you do it. It was fantastic.
That's the development of that act. That's how it started. I want to do bungee and then take Nancy's dress off, and then so that was a starting point. Which was.
I can imagine you selling the day you sold the idea. I've got this idea, Nancy, where I'm going to whip your dress off with a bungee cord, and the rest is history.
Yeah. And then, of course, Cal McChrystal is amazing comedy director.
Yes.
You know, so he instantly loved the idea.
You were pushing on an open door. You had me at bungee cord, dress, Nancy. Great, fantastic. Yes, and I'm aware that Cal McChrystal has become the sort of in-house director of Gifford's, hasn't he, as well? He's found the clearing too of the circus arena.
Yeah, it'll be. I think he's coming up for his 10th year soon.
Mm-hmm.
So he grabs my attention. There you go.
Yes.
So it was great. It was great when Cal came on board, because obviously we're completely on the same wavelength, because, you know, physical comedy is his forte. And I'd wanted to work with Cal and emailed Cal a long time before, like quite a few years before he came here. And it wasn't even my suggestion that that he came and directed. So when I heard it's like, oh, Cal's coming for Meeting Possible Director, I'm like, what?
Yes,
Really?
bring him on. Yeah.
So,
I think I know he's done many things, but was it The Servant and The Governors and
One Man, Two Governors.
Thank you so much.
Kind of his big
break.
One, yeah. He also done like the Paddington movies. He did all the comedy.
Yes.
For them, and he had a little cameo in there as well.
By the way, I'm very delighted because both him and you are sort of slightly connected to this comedy group I've been doing online called #LolVirus, which is to spread a little happiness during adversity. So, like you and he, you're both connected to me as friends on Facebook, which I'm sort of quietly very chuffed about. So, thank you. So, anything else that grabs your attention?
Probably, but not at the moment.
Lovely. And by the way, I have to ask and mention, you know, the beautiful relationship you did have with Nell Gifford. Is there anything else you'd like to say about that whole really poignant story?
Yeah, it's very strange feeling now, obviously, with her not here. But we were so pleased to get the feast up and running because we knew that that's what she would have wanted. Like she would always say, and she spent like the last kind of 2 years painting. That was kind of her, I think, a sort of therapy process that she did. And she'd always say, keep the circus going. And that was kind of, would be written in a lot of her artwork. So to be able to keep the circus going in a different format, in a different time, really, in a whole different world. And
you're so beautifully positioned, all of you, because of this notion of vaudeville and playing it forward, going into the past to play it forward. I love that profound messaging that manifests through her art then, and I saw quite a lot of it on Instagram, the idea of keep the circus going, and I'm so happy that obviously you're doing that.
Yeah, and it's, you know, her presence is everywhere, you know. It's kind of, I mean, I'm surrounded by it because I'm here now at the farm, but it should completely keep on going, you know, keep on living through the circus and through her art. And yeah, it kind of feels like she'll always be with us, really.
And for those that don't know the story, of course, she and Totty Gifford started this about 20 years ago, and it's Lily Rice is her niece, isn't it, who's now taken on the mantle of the Queen, and you've still got the mantle of the Clown, obviously.
Yeah, so there's kind of a few. The circus has essentially gone to the children, to Red and Cecil, and it, you know, so I guess the hope would be that they'll maybe take over when they're old enough, if that's what they want to do. So it's kind of, you know,
it reminds me of that. It reminds me of that beautiful line that I so love in Monty Python when I think Michael Palin and Terry Jones are by the curtains in it's the Holy Grail, and he says, "Someday, son, all this will be yours." And he goes, "What, the curtains?" "No, not the curtains, you daft apeth." So the Gifford Circus is on the lawn for the children if they want it.
Yeah, so it's kind of been, Lil Rice is kind of producer, and there's a board of directors
yes,
as well, to kind of, you know, keep it going, and then
and long may it continue. Now we're nearly finishing shaking your tree, so now we've got one quirky or unusual fact about you. We already know that you've got an iconic pet iron called Keef. At some point, I'd love it if you'd sing me, just because you can, the "I've Got a Lolly" song, because my children and I just love that. But is there a quirky or unusual? What, you're going to get a lolly? Yes, please. So think about that.
Oh dear, I haven't got a lolly.
You've not got a lolly. I wish I had one, because I'd be able to go, "I've got a lolly." You haven't got one. You're such a loser. Lovely. So a quirky or unusual fact about you we couldn't possibly know until you tell us.
What's my middle name?
Well, I know that you're Alan Tweedy Digweed, so I'm guessing Tweedy, but that's wrong.
What is your wrong? Yes.
By the way, Alan Tweedy Digweed sounds a bit porridge, Norman Stanley Fletcher. And when we first spoke last week, I said, "How shall I talk to you? Shall I call you Tweedy or Alan?" You said, "Oh, no, definitely Tweedy, because I'm in trouble with my mum when I'm Alan." I love that.
They're the only people that call me Alan. My parents and my mother-in-law. So yeah, because it's like I said, I'm naturally a clown, and my clown character is kind of me excited. So if I'm out and about and I get a bit excited, it's pretty much the same thing. So there.
So what is your middle name? Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, the sound went. What is your middle name?
What?
What is your middle name? The sound went, sorry.
Yeah, yes. What?
No, what? I was saying, what is your middle name? Because the sound went dead. Is it Tweedy?
No, what?
What? Oh, what?
Correct.
Oh. What?
What?
Yes. What? Yes, so we'll just leave that there and just have the mystery of what is your middle name. Yes. I get it now. Sorry, I'm being very slow. Has the sound gone altogether? Are we still in the zone?
No, I can hear you.
I'm loving that, and thank you for teasing me. I love that. So I think we've shaken your tree.
WATT.
Alan Watt Digweed, stroke
Yeah.
Tweedy.
Yeah, and it also means the tartan I can wear is what tartan. So if I have a coat on and people go, "What tartan's that?" We go into the same routine. Yes.
Lovely, and I'm so monumentally sorry for being so thick during that moment when you were telling me or trying to explain that your name was what. Wonderful. So we've shaken your tree. Now we're away from the tree, back into the circus arena clearing, and we want to talk about alchemy and gold now, which may I say you've been giving me that in spades anyway. But when you are at purpose and in flow, what is it, Tweedy, you most like to bring to the world?
Well, joy and happiness and laughter. Yeah. It makes sense, really, doesn't it?
It
Why
does.
would you bring these things? And that's what doing the video messages during lockdown was great, because it did just feel like kind of spreading this joy and happiness. And that's normally how I start videos, spreading a bit of joy, happiness, and laughter to you all during this time. So yeah, it's a great thing, and it's a joy to kind of do that as well.
Beautiful. And then finally, I'm going to award you with a cake, if I may, Tweedy. And
Yes.
I'm not going to slap it in your face, which you might be expecting, but instead, it's your opportunity now, as the sort of legacy of this beautiful conversation, to put a cherry on the cake. And it can be a metaphor that's open to your interpretation again. It can be the best piece of advice you've ever been given. It could be what advice you might give to your younger self. It could be a favourite thing that's been said to you that you've never forgotten. However you'd like to interpret that, the cake is yours. What cherry would you like to put upon that cake?
Oh, James, the pressure. Okay, I'm going to finish with a philosophical saying of, if there's no one in the forest and a tree falls, do all the other trees point and laugh at it?
Well, lovely, beautiful. And by the way, thank you so much for joining me on the Good Listening To podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Mr. Tweedy Digweed? Perfect. So listen, thank you so much for taking the time. You've been listening to Tweedy on the Good Listening To podcast. Thank you very much indeed. Good night.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.